orange rose, microchips us, iPhone cameras us, taco salads us, Obama us, Olive Garden us, White Foster us, Sabra Hamas, Hasbara sus.
Hello, and welcome to BadHasbara, the world's most moral podcast. This is a show where I take a look at the magical world of political propaganda from all over the world, or the Middle East, specifically Israel. That's what this podcast is. Once again, my name is Matt Lieb. I will be your host for this podcast. Just a quick reminder to everyone out there who is listening. Thank you so much for listening. Give us 5 stars and a review. Do that right now. Because if you're on one of them podcast apps, they usually have a thing where they're like, rate the show. And if you do that, number one, it makes me happy, which is, I think that's first and foremost, at least for me personally. But number two, it also boosts it, it makes it easier for people to find who are looking for a podcast specifically about Israeli propaganda. I mean, I think we might be the only specific Israeli propaganda podcast, but just in case, 5 stars and review. And, do that on Spotify. You can comment on episodes. There's a thing where it goes like, how was the episode? And you can write like, great. So do that. That'll be sick. Also a reminder to everyone to join the subreddit. We started a subreddit. It is part of Reddit. There's like a section of it that's called BadHasbara. If you join that, you can talk to other people who listen to the show or who like to share funny and horrifying video that they find from, Israeli government media channels and American media channels and European. Basically, everyone's doing Hasbara. If you're, in the English speaking world or in the European world, you're going to find some crazy ass shit. A lot of talking points coming directly from the Israeli government, and they're a lot of fun to share. And it helps me out because that way I can get fucking content for the show. So that's a lot of fun. So do that. Join the subreddit. Shout out to Mod JP Ben. Also shout out to Adam Levin, who is helping me with this podcast, do some production work and get clips and all that shit. Pretty badass. Finally, if you are watching this with your eyes on YouTube, cool. I love you. You know that I do. But also, this channel will continue to be demonetized because I play a lot of clips and I do a lot of things that is, copyright is against the law, I guess. I'm a criminal. I'm an outlaw. That's the way I like to put it. I'm a bad boy. I'm a really bad boy. I'm a bad person is the thing. And so I am getting demonetized constantly because of the copyright infringement claims. So if you want to support this show, but you don't want to listen for whatever reason, you like looking, cool, go to patreon.com/frotcast and join the Patreon. Because if you go to the patreon.com/frotcast, then you can get this show as well as other shows. That I do a lot of shows here. I'm going to put a ticker on donate now, patreon.com/frotcast. Look at this. See, I'm figuring out the technology as we go. Okay. So you can go there. I do other shows with my podcast partner, Vince Mancini, where we talk about The Sopranos and talk about The Wire and talk about media and movies and shit in general. Lots of fun. Surprisingly, those are also very political podcasts because both The Sopranos and The Wire are very political shows. So join the Patreon. Help me out if you want. I don't care. I do care, but I want to pretend like I don't care. Okay. Today, our guest, really fantastic guest today. I'm very excited because this was someone who I've actually known for a while through his work on YouTube and also his awesome podcast, the Iron Dice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone else, our guest today is Dan Arrows. Oh, let me add him to the Yeah, there we go. And then we're gonna flip. There we are. How you doing?
Nice. Hey, Matt. Hey, piggies. So glad to be here. What's up? Ready to represent the second worst country in international media here and now.
Hey, listen. First of all, much love to Germany. Not for their past or their present, but to the Germans that I have met individually, who I am going to assume, based on just meeting them, that most of the country is filled with like really cool, good, smart, good-hearted people, and it's not all, insane people who forgive genocide, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I haven't talked to every single one individually, but it sure tends to feel like the opposite these days.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I would never paint any country with a broad brush, no matter what they did to a portion of my family. But
really, really comfortable on this podcast for me so far.
I'm here to confront you as an avatar for all Germans.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I had it coming.
But no, I'm very excited to talk to you today because I want to talk to you and our audience today is about Germany, which has a very interesting role, I think, in the last few months. Since the retaliation for the attacks on October 7th. I think a lot of people are coming to this whole, Israel-Palestine conflict, to use that reductive term. They're coming to it, I think, new. Like, a lot of people don't know anything about it. So I think people are looking at Germany and going like, what the fuck is going on there? What? And I think, as someone who's followed this for a while, I'm like, oh yeah. If you didn't know, Germany, huge supporters of Israel in a way that I think is, on the one hand, understandable, and on the other hand, totally baffling to anyone who's just like, but isn't genocide bad?
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's shifted into like a whole different mode on October 7th, because prior to that, Germany was always kind of like juggling these two aims of really caring about international law and international institutions and what the UN says, and ascribing meaning to that and having it as this sort of like moral guideline for their actions. But on the other side, like being as loyal to Israel as possible. So they would always just try to find like this middle road where they wouldn't like recognize the Golan Heights as Israeli territory, but they also wouldn't make a fuss about it or ever mention it unless directly asked. Or they would, the last time around when the conflict flared up was when the Israeli government evicted people from Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem.
Right.
And of course, like Hamas retaliated with rockets or whatever, and then like Israel retaliated, and there was a large civilian death toll. And the answer to whenever that happens for a German politician is basically just saying Israel has a right to defend itself. We urge all parties to, remain calm, and then they hope it just goes away quickly.
Right.
And for this time around, it seems like they're just like pedal to the metal, like finish the job, Israel. We don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think like it sounds incredibly similar to the way that, the United States has kind of dealt with Israel, at least in the past, which is like the official government line for years and years, despite what many of you who are new to this, whole thing might think. It was, hey, Israel, the settlements in the West Bank are bad, and like you shouldn't do that. Like this is not something that like only Democratic presidents said. Like George W. Bush said the same thing, and they all said something along the lines of there should be a two-state solution. But it is in this recent conflict that it seems that is all out the window with both the United States, foreign policy people, and in Germany as well. Like now it's just like Israel has a right to defend itself. So let them do what they got to do, dog. Just let them fucking, and everyone seems to like they're allowing it to happen. They don't look stoked about it. But I will say that I have seen some more full-throated, like pro-Israel support coming from Germany than I think I had maybe seen or even noticed in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like now that like roughly 25,000 people have died, they're kind of like toning it down a little bit, but like the cart has gone out from under them. Like Biden and our foreign minister Annalena Baerbock both said like today or last week, like yeah, we're committed to like a two-state solution. This is like the only way out, and just being like immediately shut down by like the Israeli government that this is not something they're considering at all.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because there was no talk of that coming from either Israel or from either Germany or the United States. I think for the last few months, it's been like very much just like
I mean
eyes down.
It seems like they just like they're okay with the status quo and for like the Palestinian question to just like dither away, to like for the Palestinians to just end up like the Kurds way, where they have like a legitimate claim to statehood, but they have no path of ever getting there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's been interesting watching Germany, and I think just for some background. So let's talk about Germany and its relationship to Israel, and it's kind of like on a societal level, German people's relationship to Israel. The one thing that I have at least been told by people and have read about in limited capacity is that the German left is also Zionist. Is that right? Is that basically correct or no?
I guess it depends on where you draw the line. If like if you mean like the liberal left, then yes, for sure.
Right.
If you mean like further left than that, like not even represented by any major party on a national level, then it's kind of it's like splintered, where you have like German leftists who are like fully Zionist, and you have like weird little like splinter groups in there, and you also have a lot of young people and people with a migration background who are firmly on the side of the Palestinians. Yeah.
I mean, that is one thing that I think we've definitely seen in the past few months is seeing that kind of pro-Palestinian representation on the ground in Israel, in Germany, and I've been heartened by it because I'm like, I had always heard that basically the German left was, in every other sense, at least, for Americans' ears, very left wing, very, openly socialist and whatnot. But then, when it came to Israel, for reasons that I think are fairly obvious, at least on the face of it, they were always like, no, of course, and we fully support Israel and its right to exist. And it seems like I don't want to paint the pro-Palestinian protesters in Germany. They're not out in the street screaming against Israel's quote right to exist. They are screaming for a ceasefire, from what I can see.
Yeah, I mean, there has been this really weird back and forth after October 7th because there were like instances where right on October 7th or like right after, like people took to the street waving like Palestinian flags, kind of like celebrating the attack or whatever. And it has led to this like, maybe this would have happened anyway, but like you could also see it as like a kind of overreaction where in the aftermath and the weeks after, and even in parts like to today, like any sign of showing Palestinian solidarity is completely banned. It doesn't really matter how you even phrase it. Like in the city of Munich, you couldn't do a protest for like the Palestinian people, even if it's just about like human rights or whatever. It was like banned like throughout the entire city and in other cities as well.
It's nuts because this is stuff that in the United States I see inklings of it, where you see like your so-called right-wing free speech warriors who are they're also pushing to ban the Palestinian flag, like in Florida, or ban, phrases like from the river to the sea, or, ban any kind of support of BDS, making people take BDS pledges. And it seemed like Germany did kind of a turbocharged version of that after October 7th, where it seemed that they were this is according to an article that I was reading from the New Arab that was outlining the criminalization of Palestinian solidarity in Germany. News outlets were getting in Germany were getting an internal memo, or at least one did, from ARD, which is the national German news outlet, and it was I think a lot of journalistic institutions get kind of like guidelines for how we are going to discuss things, but kind of like really off the rails stuff. I mean, talking about the slogan "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" is classified as a criminal offense, as a phrase, according to them, means that a free Palestine in the area from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea means the annihilation of Israel. Germany has banned the vast majority of pro-Palestinian protests, and dozens have been detained following marches in Berlin and other German cities. So, people are getting arrested for protesting. How does that jibe in Germany with the idea? Like, what's the Germans' relationship to the idea of like free speech and like that kind of shit?
So, so Germany has like this self-understanding of what's sometimes called like a fortified democracy, where the idea is that if you want to have a democracy that is able to maintain itself, it has to have some tools at its disposal to kind of like defend itself against people who want to abolish it. Right. So like an instrument in that would be like banning a political party that is outright against like the like democratic order, or like against like our constitution or basic law, as it's called. So those are kind of like the tools that we have, and there are kind of like ripple effects of this understanding, like, and also like this is kind of all stems back to like the Nazis taking over and like the Holocaust and the horror of the Second World War, and how do you reconstruct yourself out of that. So, and in regards to Israel, like Germany has this, like Israel was kind of part of Germany restructuring like its self-identity in the world, like being on good terms with Israel and like making sure that like an Israel exists is part of like making amends, and is like showing that like we can be, is like our way into like the international community in a way. So. And this is really just like, I feel like this problem has been in the making for a while, because it goes like much deeper than any like contemporary laws or like any restrictions on free speech. Because in Germany, you often hear this phrase that like the security of Israel is like the German word is like Staatsräson. It's like a raison d'etat, or like reason of state. Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's not in the constitution, whatever, but it's kind of like that is what it means for us. Like, this is why we are a nation in parts, not only, but in parts. And I think that isn't itself a problem as long as Israel is like a normal country, as long as it's not engaged in like gross human rights violations and mass murder. But now it has all kind of come to blows, and I think we're now seeing like the effects of what Germany has understood anti-Semitism to be, because like each government has to decide for itself, what even is anti-Semitism, and there are like conflicting definitions of that. The one that the German government goes by, or that they recommend to their people, is the one from the International Holocaust Remembrance Association, which is not without its detractors. But when they passed that in 2017, they added like an addendum to it that like not only is like our attacks on Jewish people possibly anti-Semitic, but like Israel understood as like a Jewish collective.
Right.
Attacks on it can be anti-Semitic, aren't necessarily, but like the insinuation there is it's probably anti-Semitic. Yeah. So
we've had a lot of that as well. The over here, the term that they've tried to basically trademark is the new anti-Semitism, and it has been an obsession, mostly among like conservatives and neoconservatives in the early aughts. This idea of the new anti-Semitism as being the real threat to world Jewry, and that threat stems from anti-Israel sentiment coming out of college students who want to rename a salad. Like real ticky-tack bullshit, just like a student group, a Zionist student group being near a Palestinian flag being looked at as like a threat. So we've had a lot of that.
And and that's a question, where does that take you? If you see like, okay, the security of Israel is part of Germany's special responsibility to make sure that to let Jewish life on the planet or in Germany like survive and thrive, which I think it has a special obligation to think about and to make actions towards. But if you connect that explicitly to Israel, it kind of leads us to where we are right now, and that in itself wouldn't be like, as if that wasn't horrible enough. You also have like this it's really baffling how like Germany has kind of like made doing a genocide part of its like resume, like something that it like
if there's one thing we know about, it's what is and isn't a genocide.
Exactly.
By the way, is it offensive in Germany for an American to do a wacky German accent?
It's not to me.
Okay, well then we're good. But yeah, like it is. I have seen this exact thing where it's on the resume as like it's an endorsed skill on LinkedIn doing genocide.
Like, oh, South Africa, how many genocides have you done? Oh, right. That's what I thought,
Yeah, trust me, we know a thing. You may know about apartheid, but I think we know something about genocide, all right? Anyways, I support the current government doing the killing. Yeah, it has been interesting seeing that as kind of like, Germany's like foray into the whole ICJ, trial as being like a supporter of Israel, and talking down to the South Africans and being like, we're Germany, okay? We did genocide the best. So therefore, we are the ultimate authority on what does and does not constitute genocide, which is, it's a sickening argument that you hear even outside of Germany and German officials. The idea of like what is and isn't a genocide as basically being, until we have reached Holocaust, then nothing illegal is going on, essentially.
Yeah. What's so frustrating about it is specifically for the case in front of the International Criminal Court is that like Germany announced this right after South Africa wrapped up that part of the trial, but they didn't even say like why specifically. They just said this has no basis, and like to accuse Israel of genocide is like you're reversing like the victim and the perpetrator, like you're victim blaming basically.
Right.
But nothing even really of substance. They could have just as well not done this and would have been like totally fine. No one would have even expected them to do to go to the ICC.
Yeah, and it's a very funny thing to watch. The online, Zionists, yelling at South Africa for having the nerve bring forth their charge of genocide and charge of human rights abuses, and they're just like, oh yeah, South Africa, you're gonna talk about human rights abuses? I think not with your past. Anyways, here is the Vice Chancellor of Germany to talk about why The Hague is bad. And it's like, okay, so we're gonna, let's parse South Africa's past and then bring in the German Chancellor. It's like it's interesting seeing his the presser that he did. I actually have a video of it that I want to play, but it was what was his name? I had it written down.
Robert Habeck, so Vice Chancellor.
Yes. And he had a press conference defending Israel from accusations of genocide levied by South Africa and by people with eyes. And he specifically singled out the phrase "from the river to the sea" in this press conference, which has been criminalized in parts of Germany as being a genocidal slogan. I have a clip of that I would like to play for the audience here. Here we go.
Für ein zu hartes Vorgehen im Gazastreifen.
Actually, those who would commit genocide or desire to do so, if given the opportunity, are Hamas. Okay, so sorry, I had to, for our podcast audience, I'm doing a translation of it. And I did the accent again because you got to know he's German in case you didn't know.
Right.
The annihilation of the state of Israel is on their agenda, so we can understand the slogan "from the river to the sea" as not meaning that Jews should leave Israel by boat, but as an extinction fantasy. Everybody knows it is a genocidal phrase. I sure hope that my characterization of this phrase does not bite me in mine Asher in a few days.
1 week later.
In any arrangement, whether there is an accord or not, the Israeli state must have security control over all the territory west of the Jordan River. It's a necessary condition.
So 1 week later or so, Benjamin Netanyahu comes out and holds a press conference. Of course, if it's in Hebrew, it's going to be good shit. Because the stuff that he says, whenever Netanyahu or any Israeli official comes out and speaks in English, you're getting pure Hasbara. You're getting just their, appeals to the Western sentiment, and they tell you what you want to hear. When it's in Hebrew, that's when you get stuff like him saying everything west of the Jordan River must be under the security control of Israel, which is, that is from the river to the sea. Because, the river we're talking about, west of the Jordan is a river. Everything west of that, it stops at the sea. In case because I've seen a few people being like, well, he didn't say from the river to the sea. He's like, no, he just outlined the exact coordinates that from the river to the sea implies.
What really grinds my gears about our Vice Chancellor, who's part of the Greens, which are like the middle class, upper middle class liberals,
right?
Kind of like people who donate to Amnesty International and who supposedly really care about human rights. Is that like while he's just saying this, he just gives the most like affected and like empathetic voice. He's like about to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. There's no other way. Germany for the Germans and fuck those Arabs," or something like that. And like I would almost prefer it if they were just like full-throated, like this is what we believe, 100%. And not like this like weird dance between two positions that are irreconcilable.
I completely agree. That is my main target when it comes to this podcast, and then also my own like content that I put online is this kind of like wishy-washy liberal Zionism thing where we want to have our I'm the good guy cake and eat it too, trying to present yourself as the, progressive, tolerant, whatever, empathetic one, while at the same time holding this completely contradictory, viewpoint that Israel got to do what Israel got to do. And
Right.
it's so sickening to me because it's one thing that I think I and a lot of people detest about liberals is that I feel like at least right-wing people in some sense know they're a piece of shit. Like deep down, right-wingers know they're pieces of shit, whereas liberals think they're good, and I can't have that.
Yeah, and I've really noticed that this is really fit in nicely into the rightward shift that is going on in Germany, where prior to October 7th even there was and there still is a lot of pushback on immigration, on Germany becoming more diverse, and for liberals who are kind of nervous about, I don't know, the class that their child is in having too many foreigners in it or whatever, what they imagine, this idea of anti-Semitism in Germany being something that's imported, that's brought in by foreigners from the Arab world, is the perfect get out of jail free card, because they can just say, no, we don't want any migrants because we want to protect Jewish Germans.
100%. It is. I think that's a fantastic point. The idea that it's we're importing all these anti-Semites to Germany or to anywhere in Europe. The idea that the big issue with immigration is mostly that they're anti-Semitic, they hate women. It's this is the entire liberal argument that holds an incredibly right-wing viewpoint, simultaneously, where it's just no, I'm not right-wing. I love all these I have all these progressive values, which is why I don't want the dirty foreigners from the Middle East to come here. And it's just be a piece of shit. Just admit it,
Yeah, and it's not I don't think it's it's from the get-go illegitimate to be concerned about that if you want to be part of German society, you got to reject anti-Semitism. But
of course not.
The underlying belief there is that the underlying liberal belief there is that oppression inherently makes people virtuous in a way, and if they aren't fully virtuous, then they're not really oppressed. So that's why they always point to the homophobia in Gaza, in and all these fundamentalist values that are hold there, and say, well, even if it has nothing to even if a person is homophobic, a human rights violation can still be done to them.
Yes,
these things really aren't connected, but to them they very much are.
100%. And I've not heard it put that way before, but I think that is exactly right, and that perfectly encapsulates that sort of liberal worldview regarding oppression and victimhood, and just the standards that a victim, and I feel the standards are it's obviously a double standard, because you wouldn't hold that same standard towards an Israeli who was moving there, or a group of Ukrainians who are
or a German anti-Semite,
right? Yeah, and just the idea that you are using that kind of framing of oh, well, they're anti-Semitic, or they're homophobic, or they are hate women or whatnot. You're using that. It's clearly because you're holding this double standard. You're not applying that equally. You just don't trust Arabs, and that's just something that they can't admit, because then that fucks with their view of themselves as the good guy.
Yeah. And just to put a bow on this immigration talk in regards to Germany, that is also why after people celebrated the attack on October 7th, in a couple of cities, there was a big proposal from the conservatives to if you want to get the German passport, it's you have to sign a waiver that Israel has a right to exist. not that you like reject anti-Semitism in all
Right.
its form, but specifically in reference to Israel, which is very telling in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, incredibly telling. Yeah, the idea. I mean, and I think that is something that you see. I mean, beyond just that, you see that in the way that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism have been interlinked. That one has superseded the other at this point, where it is kind of okay to be anti-Semitic as long as you support Israel. Because if you support Israel, that is your the ultimate expression of loving Jews, which you know, as a Jew, I'm like, huh? Because for me, for example, you know, I as someone who goes on Twitter still, big mistake, but is still on that horrible website. Elon Musk has done this thing where he has opened the floodgates to the Nazis, you know, and they have been, they've really been like going crazy, at least in my mentions, for the last like month or so. And you see simultaneously his promotion of these pro-Israel Hasbarists on the timeline, where he's like he has set the algorithm to push their posts, and you know he went to Israel, he kissed the ground. I think the Onion said like he cried tears, and he he was so happy to be back in an apartheid state. And like this idea of like you can say all the anti-Semitic shit that you want and hold all the like obviously anti-Semitic coded views that exist out there, like your great replacement theories or whatever right-wing fucking Soros shit you want to put out there, anti-George Soros shit. You can do all that as long as you are supporting Israel, which is the avatar for all Jews now. And it's interesting, bringing up the immigration thing, at least for me, because, in America, we have a different, anti-immigrant thing, because all of our immigrants are from Latin America, or at least that's the ones we target. And of course, in Europe, in the last decade or so, you see a lot more of the anti-Arab immigration things, at least on the right. So what I want to ask is about like there's a new right wing that exists, that is coming out of sort of the mixture of pro-Zionist, pro-Israel politics and anti-Arab sentiment, where you've basically got people who are spouting right-wing talking points about immigrants and whatnot, but freeing themselves from the burden of being labeled anti-Semites. And by supporting Israel, have you seen a change? How much has that melded into sort of like more left-leaning or liberal like spheres, at least in Germany? Like how much is the anti-immigrant stuff like starting to, at least since the 7th, like pop up again? And are you seeing it from liberal spaces or liberal commentators?
Yes, I would say generally that Germany has like soured on the idea of immigration a lot and becoming like a more diverse society over the last 2 to 3 years. And what you're saying there about like the getting out of the accusation of anti-Semitism, like it really drives home that point when you look at like Germany's far right, which is the AfD, which is polling at like 20% nationally right now. It's highest it's ever been.
Holy shit.
And specifically in the East, they're like a full-on like neo-Nazi party. They're like the Wehrmacht really didn't do anything wrong and whatever, like they're about as extreme as you can get. But if you look into what they do in Parliament, like the anti-BDS resolution that was passed in Parliament was initially a proposal from them, like from the AfD.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
because the like if you're on the far right, the goals of Israel and your own goals like really don't like diverge as much. You know, it plays into your hands this idea of that like Jews aren't really safe anywhere except for in Israel, because you know if you're far right, you want them gone out of
Right.
your country as well. And but yes, right now I do remember something like that. It's not specifically in regards to migration, but it was really a moment where I like turned around and I felt like am I going crazy here? Like I'm not understanding this at all anymore.
Yeah.
And there was a protest organized by like the government on October 10th in front of the Brandenburg Gate. Huge protest.
Right.
And the co-head of the Green Party, you can see I really have like a thing out for them. He held a speech, and he said, this really stuck in my mind because this was so shocking to me. He said that like for a morally upstanding person, there's no other option than to stand with Israel, the homestead of the Jewish people. And I was like, how can like a progressive guy like two cheers and nobody like bats an eye say like imply that like a Jewish German's homestead is Israel and it's not like it's not Germany.
It's not Germany.
Like,
yeah,
that is so crazy to me. And that is something that I would see as deeply anti-Semitic, but it didn't even register. You know, no one even talked about it.
No, you are your anti-Semitism gauge is correct, Dan. That is insanely anti-Semitic, and you're not crazy. Nor is this an experience that you've had like. Just for you, a lot of people have had this exact experience of, feeling like, am I insane, or are people saying that Jews, either my Jewish friends or me personally, am not from here? And that is insane. It is anti-Semitic. And I think, doing it in front of the Brandenburg Gate in Germany is obviously like even more like, oh shit. Okay. Like that's, that kind of sentiment there obviously carries a more powerful punch. But like, yeah, it is something that we've seen a lot over here. The kind of, we had our president, Joe Biden.
That was insane.
Butcher
Biden.
Biden.
Interrupt. Yeah.
We had him say, without Israel, not a Jew in the world is safe, as if it is not literally his job to keep all of his citizens safe.
Yeah. Must feel great to hear that from like your president.
Yeah, no, it was like this insane thing that like at least every Jewish person that I know, who, I am still talking to. Obviously, there are a few who we are not on speaking terms since the 7th because they are losing their mind a little bit. But everyone was just like, what the fuck? This isn't a normal thing to say. And watching people try to explain it away or either because they are Zionists or because they are just fucking, blue team people. They just love the Dems. And they're like, no, Dems always say good thing. And if they say bad thing, it was accident or you're bad. This is just like an insanely charged time for anti-Semitic statements that are wrapped in the gift wrapping of pro-Israel statements.
Yeah. And then it's really like a 1-2 punch where you have like that like makes you think, am I crazy? And then you get like a huge op-ed about like how Greta Thunberg is like anti-Semitic for
having a squid
standing with Palestine.
Yeah, because she got a puffy little stuffed animal squid, and they're just like, well, look at these dog whistles, and I'm like, dog whistles? You want to talk about dog whistles? You just said I'm not from here. Yeah, it is interesting, and I think. One of the things that a lot of pro-Palestinian or Jewish Palestinian solidarity groups have been trying to do is like show kind of like the hypocrisy in the way that in order to protect Jews, they're mass arresting Jewish protesters who speak out against the genocide in Gaza. And there was one video recently or semi-recently. This is happening also in Germany. We had, you guys had Iris Hefetz. How do you pronounce that? Hefetz?
Yeah, I'd say
okay.
you nailed it. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Held up a poster on Hermannplatz in Berlin that said, quote, "As a Jew and Israeli, stop the genocide in Gaza." The police asked her to take down the poster and stop protesting alone. She refused and was temporarily arrested. And I have a video of that as well. And it's, you know, again, it packs more of a punch when you see it, you know, in Germany, where, yeah. All right, this person is Jewish Israeli, German. As a Jewish and Israeli, stop the genocide in Gaza. Within seconds, the Berliner police arrested her, commanding her to take the sign down. And she is speaking with the Polizei. Knowing her democratic rights, she refused. Shortly afterwards, she was arrested. They're taking her into a police trailer, which seems kind of nice. If you've ever been on a movie set, it looks similar to that, except for I think locks from the outside. Since the beginning of the war in Gaza, Berliner police banned voices condemning, condemning the killing of civilians, unless these civilians are Jews. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's wild to see.
Yeah, it really makes you like scratch your head if you have this assumption that like Germany has like really this commitment to like keep Jews safe and give them like a voice in Germany. But it really all makes sense if you understand like what we talked about in the beginning, where like an anti-Semitic act can be an act against like the state of Israel. And if you go by that definition, it makes perfect sense that like the German state would arrest a Jewish person for anti-Semitic incitement, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not just that incident. It's happened like multiple times. It has happened, and it's not always arresting. Like there have been numerous like Jewish intellectuals who, let's say, like wrote an op-ed in like the American press, one specifically compared to like the situation in Gaza to like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, they have their shows canceled or like their contracts rescinded and stuff like that.
Yeah,
by Germans, you know.
Yeah, Masha. I need to get the name, but it was Masha Gessen, Russian-American journalist and writer, who was going to get a Hannah Arendt Prize and had, I think, not the prize canceled, but the ceremony itself was. Well, what happened?
They first canceled the prize. They first canceled the whole thing, and then there was an enormous blowback from other intellectuals because the foundation that gives out the Hannah Arendt Prize is like close to the Greens. It's a lot of like, as I said, like upper class liberals, academics, and there was a lot of blowback internationally as well. So she actually got the prize in the end, but with a much smaller ceremony. But initially it was all canceled.
Was it a smaller prize too? Like they shrunk the trophy down.
They broke it in half.
They broke it in half, and they're like, "Here's your fucking prize." And yeah, so you know, she or they were you know, went through all this trouble and got it. You know, this Hannah Arendt Prize for political thought. You know, taken away and then given back, all because they compared Gaza to Jewish ghettos in an article, in an essay that they wrote in The New Yorker. That was December 14th. December 31st, in the Jerusalem Post is a little quote from our old pal in the Knesset, right-wing ghoul, Smotrich, admitted as much that the Palestinians, want to go. They have been forcibly held against their will, in a ghetto for 75 years, in poverty, and told that the only resolution to the situation is to destroy Israel and return to Haifa and Tiberias. So like just the idea of, the Israeli right is going, publicly just being like, yeah, we know what Gaza is. It is a ghetto. That is what we've done. We have ghettoized them, and not ghetto in the way that like the American inner city ghetto or whatnot, or, this is a ghetto, like, and I believe Masha said essentially what this amounts to, this war in Gaza, is the liquidation of the ghetto. And this is exactly what the more scary but more honest right-wing Knesset members like Ben Gvir and Smotrich are saying out loud, like, yes, this is a ghetto, and we're about to liquidate this shit.
And even beyond that, like, even if that was like a wholly inaccurate statement, just like the goal for like a German association to like, especially because it's the Hannah Arendt Prize for political thought, like to tell like a Jewish intellectual, sorry, you're canceled because you're too problematic for us, like in Germany, is just very, it's very concerning to me, actually. Like it's quite scary.
And it's like, it's all so, it's all so on the nose level ironic. Like it's if this were written, in fiction, you would just be like, I don't know, you're kind of beating me over the head here with the dramatic irony, but it's, it is real life. It's not fiction. These are completely, contradictory views that to anyone with a brain and a sense of irony would be like laughable at the idea of like canceling this, like the Germans being like, no, don't give this Russian American journalist the Jewish prize, and it's let's arrest the Jews for doing anti-Semitism. It's just so on the nose. Like, what the fuck?
What I think is really important there, and what that specifically draws into focus, is that a lot of people have this assumption that like, oh, the Germans, they can't help themselves, like they're just overzealous because of their history, and it's really not that. It's not about protecting Jewish sensibilities. It's about protecting German sensibilities. For Germans, for their self-perception to combat anti-Semitism is like being a good person, which it is, but they extend that fully to Israel and all its actions. So they would rather like cancel the talk of a Jewish intellectual than reckon with that discrepancy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, yes, it is true that to be against anti-Semitism is good and makes you, at least in that sense, a good person. Of course. The idea, though, is that, at least with liberals, is it's using this as a way to either not honestly engage with this intellectually in any sense, or using it for the purposes of holding an incredibly right-wing view. So you either have liberals who are, useful idiots for the right, or you have liberals who are, not really all that liberal, and get to just, look at themselves as a good person and hold these completely conflicting views. It's one of the things that I think blows my mind when it comes to the way we talk about Zionism is, and the way that anti-Zionism has been turned completely into this idea of anti-Semitism, where you have allowed yourself to, hold anti-Semitic views and allow anti-Semitism, to happen, and cheer it on, but because it's pro-Israel, you're like, well, that's fine. You know, I am, as long as I feel good, like I'm the good guy in the end, then I can let this happen.
Right. And it's not like there aren't like discerning Jewish voices in Germany about this as well. It's just that they're kind of like pushed out of the conversation a little bit. Like one of them is like, not just a little bit. One of them is like Deborah Feldman, who had like a sort of like a mini debate on a public broadcast with our vice chancellor, where she said that she feels very uncomfortable about her like her Jewish identity being used as this sort of fig leaf to back the actions of a transparently like far right in parts fascist government.
Yeah.
And she has been and she explicitly said like it's not great being a Jew in Germany that doesn't like Israel. And she has been like criticized for that a lot, like especially from Germans and from conservatives for even like suggesting that. But in their mind, like, and they have said this publicly, like the idea of a Jewish person that doesn't fully agree with like Israel, what it's been doing for 40 years in terms of the occupation or just on a regular basis, like that is almost like non-existent to them. You know, it's like here and there are a few, but it's not really something that even registers on their radar at all.
Right, and I think that that is a willing denial of that the diversity of thought around Israel within Jewish communities all over the world, outside of Israel and inside of Israel, is like, you know, that there are Jews who are huge critics of Israel, but the idea of giving them any air would piss people off, especially some of the more some of the more like well-funded institutions, and the ones that the institutions that have power and sway are going to be like, no, we need to ignore that because that totally fucks up our narrative. The idea of the, you know, Jewish anti-Zionist or the Jewish critic of Israel is a real narrative killer for anyone who is trying to paint a broad solidarity within the Jewish community as being pro-Israel. Like this idea of like, you know, if you are mean to Israel, you are mean to Jews. And that only works if you are painting every Jew as being essentially Israel. As every Jew in its collective is Israel. They just don't all live there yet, which is another way of just saying that Jews are a group of people with dual loyalty who have no ties to their host country, and that they're just there to, have power and all the, you know, fucking anti-Semitic tropes. Yeah.
And what you're saying about like this being like a structural issue is so true. And this is exactly what this intellectual that I just mentioned, Deborah Feldman, maligned in German society, is that the voices you hear from German Jews are from these institutions like the Central Council of Jews or like the German Israeli Society, which are like explicitly Zionist and in parts, like not just, you know, there's a difference between saying like, as a German, I think it's good that like Israel exists as this idea of a safe haven for the Jewish people. You know, that's one thing. Just like in a vacuum, you know, putting everything else to the side. But then you also have like people from like the head of the Central Council of Jews accused like Greta Thunberg of being anti-Semitic.
Right.
They're connected to a newspaper that's called like Jüdische Allgemeine, which is Germany's largest newspaper, and they published an op-ed piece last week by a German member of the Liberal Party, just saying like the civilians in Gaza are not innocent, and basically just like making the case that collective punishment is justified in the instance of Gaza. I don't know why you would try to make that point as like a German,
right?
Or maybe like chill out on that point. But yeah,
at least like let someone else make that point. Fucking weirdo. Like it is so insane. But yeah, no, I actually wanted to ask you about that very thing, because I know about the systemic issue or the institutional issue around the conflation of Jewishness and Zionist, because in the United States, with our institutions, we, or at least within the institutional Jewish community, all of our institutions, or not all, but a large portion of our institutions have done a complete Zionist pivot to a degree that I think is dangerous for Jews in the United States. The big example being the ADL. The Anti-Defamation League was, I think, started after the lynching of Leo Frank in like the early 1900s, and it was created logging anti-Semitic incidents in the United States and being a civil rights group, a pro-civil rights organization. And the fact is that now, and for the past, I don't know how many decades, maybe, a couple, but at least in my lifetime, the ADL, I've watched it go from being a group that for the most part, would come out and be like, hey, that thing that guy said about Jews, being bad, that's anti-Semitic, to being a place that denies, anti-Semitism coming from the right, or at least ignores it in favor of trying to get the Hadid family canceled, or like trying to get a college student in trouble for, ripping down a poster, or, like these are institutions that were created in order to, keep American Jews safe. And the idea that they have been co-opted completely by the Israel lobby and are a part of the Israel lobby in the United States, to me is like terrifying, because of the fact that it just completely discounts the idea that an American Jew might have other things on their mind to worry about coming from the right, So yeah, I wanted to ask about what kind of institutions you have there in Germany that are now just, or have they always been Zionist, or have they been kind of like a combination where they have like, I'm interested in them. I don't know about the Jewish German Council. Like I'd never heard that before.
So for the political question, should like an Israel exist, or does it have a right to exist, or whatever? Is it secure and important? That's a question that's completely settled, like in German politics. Like that's like the baseline. Israel has a right to exist. Even if you believe, well, does it have a right to exist as apartheid state? Whatever. That's the baseline. But yeah, what you're saying is exactly right about this like far right co-opting, and like this is why Germany is talking so much about imported anti-Semitism. Well, at the same time, like the AfD is polling at like a 20% nationally, which is like our second most popular party right now. And we actually had like a ton of like anti-far right protests over the weekend, like hundreds of thousands of people, but including incidents where people who like had like Palestinian scarves on or something like that were explicitly like shut out of those protests. And I don't know, this is just anecdotal, but I've seen like people complaining about being like spat on or like assaulted. Yeah,
by the right or by the
no. This was explicitly by like climate activists, basically. Yeah, because this is like what combating anti-Semitism has like morphed into in Germany. But in terms of like Germany doesn't really have anything like AIPAC, for instance. Right. It's pretty self-sustaining, and it's not hard to understand why, because like if you're a German person for whom this topic is from the get-go uncomfortable,
Right.
I could totally understand like the German government just never talk about this at all, being like, come on, bro, like can someone else like take this one, we really want to deal with this.
There's a lot
That
of
would be one
countries that
thing.
could talk about this, right? We'll just
Yeah,
lay back in the cut.
Please not us. Yeah, exactly. If you're a German person for whom this is already uncomfortable, and you see that like the Central Council of Jews in Germany is saying Greta Thunberg is like borderline anti-Semitic,
Right.
like the cards are just like stacked against you to even like question that, because you want to be like an upstanding citizen and combat anti-Semitism and be an ally to Jewish people in Germany. So yeah, it's like everything is kind of like set up in a way where it naturally goes towards the end of these institutions who like they're not like hardcore Zionists, and they might even like criticize Netanyahu, whatever, because he's like the great sin eater of
he really is
Israeli society.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's typically like the way it works. It's like there isn't even like there's no need for like AIPAC making donations or whatever. It's pretty self-sustaining.
And it just like in Germany, that just sounds 1,000 times worse than, like at least in America, with regards to our history of anti-Semitism, like we for sure have an anti-Semitic history, but I mean, it's not, in America, we are a deeply racist, deeply anti-Black society. And, that is kind of our, that's our anti-Semitism, is just the constant othering of, Black Americans and anti-Blackness. And so not to say that, it's okay if the ADL is, now watered down to the point of just being a right-wing Zionist organization, but saying that in Germany, having your Jewish institutions be completely co-opted by Zionists is a lot scarier because of the history of German anti-Semitism, where it's like, I think you need these institutions. They hold an pretty important role on a societal level that needs to be separate from the idea of being this like foreign lobbying group. This is Germany wants to encourage the idea of safety among Jews in Germany. We not pivot to the idea that, Jews, don't worry about, German Jews, whatever. They'll be fine. Let's concentrate on, activists who are talking about genocide in Gaza. Like that as, for German Jews, I can imagine is like a pretty frightening prospect, especially considering like they're in Germany and they don't want to move. Like,
especially. And like you have on the one side, especially if you're like a German Jew who's critical of the Israeli government, like you have that on the one side, and then you have like the far right on the other side, and then you're also kind of like sometimes like collectively held responsible. Like it's not like an isolated incident that like a person who wears like a kippah in Berlin is like assaulted or aggravated or whatever. It's terrifying. Like I imagine it's terrifying for Jewish Germans and for Germans of Palestinian descent.
Sure,
the same.
Yeah, it is. It's wild, and it's like I'm fascinated by it because I know that Germany in recent years has had a lot more Jewish immigration. I forget where I read that the fastest growing Jewish population in the world right now is not Israel, it's Germany. And I was like, that's awesome. Wild, and that's fucking cool. And scary for anyone who's a German Jew there who is watching this all go down and watching the far right party have 20% of the vote. That's fucking terrifying. Yeah.
Another layer on this is that like what makes this so, you probably feel the same way. What makes this like so painful is that this comes all like this and this enthusiastic support for Israel's conduct in Gaza, or as like our vice chancellor said, like harsh conduct. like comes out the heels of like 2 years of like totemizing and like fetishizing the idea of like international law in regards to like the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and like if we don't like support them there, then like the whole like Western like value system is on trial there, and this really matters, and like telling countries in the global South that no, it's the time where we use like international law as this like cynical piece to advance our interests. That's over. We really mean it this time in regards to Ukraine and Russia, and now Gaza having all of that like flies out the window.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, never mind on all that. You know, some places international law doesn't apply to. That's I gotta say, that's always good. That's always good for any minority group in a country, and just for the state of the world, is when you have international norms just being like, you know, we're all just kind of pretending to follow these norms, but they're unenforceable. So some countries are just going to be able to do whatever the fuck they want to do.
And I feel like if you're like the German state and you really care about like keeping Jewish people safe, like this sort of attitude, this like disaffected attitude in regards to this issue really puts like more, like it does more harm than it does good to like the Jews of Germany, Jews in Israel, because like there is no future for like the Palestinians. Like there is no way out of this. We're just waiting for you to just like go away so we can stop feeling uncomfortable about this issue. Yeah. And I think that's kind of like, if there was like an honest attempt for like a two-state solution that was like pushed on, I feel like the tensions wouldn't be as heightened in that region.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it'd be nice for the people who don't want to engage with it in general. And that's why I understand when people push the two-state solution, you know, as their own personal shield against like engaging with this issue. You know, just like it is it's a way of being like, hey, you know, I think bad things are bad, and I think everyone like love is good, and everyone should have their own state and whatnot, you know. And it's like, we are now at a time in which neither Palestinians nor Israelis are pushing for that. I mean, you know, Palestinians are pushing for broad civil rights throughout the land, and the right to return and the right to vote. And Israelis are pushing for a one-state solution that ethnically cleanses the parts where there are too many Arabs and where they can get a majority. Or they're just pushing for the status quo of continued apartheid. Mm-hmm. And, you know, back when, you know, there was talks of the two-state solution or a roadmap to peace or whatever, you know, fucking like think tank institute in Washington, you know, named their fake peace plan that would never happen. You know, it was a way to kind of like push and ignore the issue and make people feel more comfortable about it, because it was just another can you were going to kick down the road anyways. At least you could say you tried. But anyways, I'm getting too deep.
But it would be so easy to find like the middle road there in regards to like October 7th, where like the German government could just come out and say, this is horrible, like we stand with you, we stand with the victims, with the families of the hostages. Right. Go and like put everyone to justice who was involved in this. Mm-hmm. But don't kill like an indiscriminate amount of civilians. And also, we might not, like, if you do that, we might not like give you our full support and deliver you like munitions for your tanks. Right. Which German government is doing right now. So I don't know why, like, they wouldn't lose like their face to anyone acting that way.
Yeah, but you know what they would lose is they would lose the support of you know, Europe and you know the United States and you know, anyone who's fucking. That's the thing, is like no one wants to do that so long as the United States is supporting Israel to the fullest. No one in Europe's fucking touching that. They're following in line, you know. And if they do,
except for Ireland,
because Ireland fucking rules. I love the Irish. You know, they're just, you know, good people. Sure, they're drunks. Sure, they, you know, they don't like masturbation or whatever, or they think if you masturbate, Jesus Christ. But they're pro-Palestinian, and that's what's important. This is a really, honestly, we could go on and on with this, but we do have to wrap up. And I know it's late. You're in Germany, right?
Yes.
So I know it's late there. Before we get out of here, it would not be an episode of BadHasbara without playing a little bit of Hasbara, and this is here's someone sent me this video of a couple of Israeli college students going around mocking the idea that Israel's an apartheid state by pointing out that in Israel they allow Arabs to go to school.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of that I'm going to play for all of us right here.
And look, it's the apartheid. We're walking into the apartheid. It's the apartheid. It's the apartheid. Yeah. It's the apartheid. Perfect example of apartheid. Freedom of speech in Israel. And look, we don't take it down.
And if you don't understand, this means this is everyone's home, Jews and Arabs living together.
Oh, wait, something's happened to the video. What is this? It seems to be a group of white and black people.
This is a country of people. Africans, black and white, Asian and colored,
Whoa.
rich and poor.
Seems to be from the 80s.
This is our South Africa.
Oh, I see. It is, for those of you listening at home, this was spliced together with a little promotional ad from apartheid South Africa, in which they were going around showing black people and white people living together, talking together, people laughing, people having fun.
Where's Elon?
Yeah, Elon's there, you know, like thinking about one day fucking Grimes and making rockets and, eventually pivoting to Jew hatred.
We are a rich variety of people, indelibly joined by our past to our future, and our diverse mixture of languages, cultures, religions make us a truly cosmopolitan society. And as Africans, we are living and working together, sharing a common goal, that of a better tomorrow.
Yeah, that better tomorrow is going to be a few years away. After the United States stopped supporting apartheid South Africa, and then they
so like desperate, like it's like you just gotta ask, okay, cool, like can you and that guy, that Arab Muslim guy over there, can you guys get married?
Right. Yeah.
And it's over, you know.
Yeah. Does he have any family in the West Bank? Oh, can they come over and hang out? Or how about this? Can they build? Let's say they wanted to, buy up some land and build a house there. Can they do that? No. Oh, can they collect rainwater? like the amount of like desperation that comes from these accounts is so crazy, because you see the level of discourse as to or like the level of what is apartheid, like constituting the definition of being like, oh, it can't be apartheid if some people speak Arabic. It can't be apartheid if there is, people in in universities in Tel Aviv who are Arabs, and completely ignoring the siege of the West Bank, completely ignoring the occupation, the siege of Gaza, the occupation of the West Bank, completely ignoring every single facet of it, and being like, no, but I can make a nice promo video, It
can't be apartheid because we invented the soda stream.
That's right. We invented SodaStream, and bad people could not have made bubbly water. Everyone knows that only good people drink the bubbly water. And I just love the fact that in that video, if you watch it again, you'll see that every time they are in a public space where there's any people around, they are whispering apartheid. Like they go, here's the apartheid. Like they won't even full throat say it because number one, they don't want to have any right-wing Israelis looking at them going, what the fuck are you doing? And number two, they don't want any Arabs going like, wait, what are you making right now?
Yeah, can I say something on this?
Yeah. Like literally just the idea of you watch the video, you'll see that they're whispering. Oh, here's that apartheid. It's like, oh yeah,
a guy wearing a headscarf, you know.
Yeah, look at that. I'm just taping them from far away. I don't want them to see. Yeah, you know that you're, you believe in the moral rightness of your statement when you whisper the sarcastic premise.
At least that's like a reason to be optimistic, right? That this it's so pathetic. And you know, we have this, we have almost Alan Dershowitz representing Israel at the ICC. Like it's not going great for them, I think.
Yeah. On the Hasbara front, you know, the one thing that keeps me going, the one thing that like keeps me thinking, you know, Palestine could one day be free is that at this point they have forgotten how to do PR. And the worse it gets, the more I go like, oh shit, we're gonna win this. But yeah, hey, you know, apartheid South Africa also made a lot of great videos, and hey, you gotta love it. All right, that is our podcast. Dan, I really want to thank you so much for coming on and talking with me at BadHasbara.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. Where can people find you?
You can find me on X, although I rarely post there, except for how much I hate our government, pretty much.
Sick.
And Iron Dice, the Iron Dice is my podcast. You can also go to patreon.com/Dan Arrows. We also have a Discord. If you're one of those people in Germany that feels isolated, there are a lot of like-minded people there.
Nice.
Check out my stuff.
Check out Dan's Patreon and check out Iron Dice. Dan, seriously, thank you so much. And I'd love to have you back on soon as, this continues. I mean, hopefully this doesn't continue and I won't have to have you back on soon, nor have this podcast anymore. But if it does, please come back again. This was a fascinating and enlightening conversation for me.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much.
Hell yeah. And thank you all out there for listening. Patreon.com/Fraudcast for all of these episodes plus other episodes. Email me, please, badhasbara@gmail.com. I want to say this is a call, an official call to everyone out there who listens to this podcast. If you are someone who is a Jewish person, or even, if you were raised in Christian Zionism, who is now coming to realize kind of what's going on, and you don't have any place, in which you can say these things publicly, please, I would love to hear your stories. We had a great email recently that I'm going to read on the next episode. I'm going to read some of it. And people have been coming to this podcast and talking a lot about their own experiences within Zionism and how they kind of got out of it, and the family that they are either losing because of it, or the family they don't talk to that much anymore, or when they do talk, they don't talk about anything serious. And I encourage people to please write or send a voice memo. If you want to tell your story and want me to play it on the podcast, badhasbara@gmail.com. I love hearing stories of people who were involved in spreading Hasbara when they were younger and are now realizing what they were doing was kind of just being a propagandist. Badhasbara@gmail.com. All right, everyone. Thanks again.